Welcome to Haunting History, the podcast that reaches back into the past for the events that shocked everyone. Tales of true crime, mystery, and the macabre. And when we're lucky, the stories were true crime, history, and the paranormal me. Now, who doesn't love a good ghost story, right? Welcome back to Haunting History Podcast. I'm your host, Kat. In this week, we visit the fort that saved America. If you watch any paranormal shows like I do, you might already be familiar with Fort Mifflin. Commissioned in 1771, the fort sits on Mud Island just below Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It is credited with playing a pivotal part in the American Revolution. With only a few hundred soldiers, they held off British forces, giving Washington the opportunity to build his army at Valley Forge. Burned down and rebuilt, the fort was active throughout the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, both world wars, all the way to the Korean War. It was decommissioned from active duty in 1962. However, a portion of the grounds is still used by the United States Army Corps of Engineers, making it the oldest fort still in military use in the U.S. As one can imagine, a place with thousands of people who died and over 200 years of history happening at Fort Mifflin, it must have its share of spirit activity, and it seriously does. Like the cussing ghost of Judge Wilhelm, or the screaming lady who people believe to be Elizabeth Pratt, who hung herself from the officer quarters railing when her daughter died of typhoid fever, or poor William Howe, who was hung during a public hanging, the only public hanging at the fort, for a crime he may not have even committed. Following is my interview with Paranormal Ambassador, you heard that right, Paranormal Ambassador is his title, to Fort Mifflin, Greg O'Brien. Probably my favorite interview to date. I think you'll find him as charming as I did. Now, your position at Fort Mifflin, you are the paranormal host?
Yes, paranormal host, paranormal ambassador, the host for the fort, yes.
Wait, there's such a thing as a title? There's a paranormal ambassador?
Well, that's somebody calls me that. They said, "Oh, you're the paranormal ambassador," but I'm just a host. But hey, I like the
No, that should be a title.
Yeah, have my hat with the ambassador.
Yes, and carry a little flag so people can find you like a Disneyland.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Oh my God, you have. I love talking to you right now because my family is all from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So you have the Pennsylvania accent.
Yeah, I got the good Philly accent here. Oh.
That's crazy. And do you say yins instead of you? Do you say like, do you use that word, that terminology, yins?
Yins, yeah, use. Well, it's really use, and then the water, instead of W-A, it's W-U-D, water.
Yeah, like say wash your clothes.
Yeah, wash your clothes.
Wash. Suddenly in Pennsylvania, there's an R in the word wash.
Yeah, wash.
So wash your clothes, yeah. I love this. Okay, so Greg O'Brien,
yep.
Paranormal Ambassador.
We don't notice it, but.
Yeah, no, I do. Only because I know I talk to a lot of people in Pittsburgh. Okay, so Greg O'Brien, Paranormal Ambassador is what we just decided your title is, from Fort Mifflin. My first question, I have a whole list of questions because my first question, I do have a list of questions though. I was watching one of the TV shows. I know a lot of the TV shows have been to Fort Mifflin. They said that Fort Mifflin was originally called the Fort That Saved America. Why is that?
Because during the siege of 1777, the Philadelphia campaign, Washington lost the Battle of Brandywine, which was down in Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania. That's about 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia. So when he lost that battle, that's when Continental Congress abandoned Philadelphia, and they hid the Liberty Bell and took it upstate and hid it, and so the British wouldn't melt it down. And then Howe, there was the Battle of Brandywine, and there was the Battle of Paoli, then the Battle of Germantown. Washington lost all those battles. General Howe marched into Philadelphia September 26, and you had this group of patriots. It was a small group at the time on the out at Fort Mifflin, and it was an island. It was called Mud Island, and the British came up to Chesapeake and not up the Delaware River because they knew of the fortifications along the Delaware. So the Patriots actually sunk spikes across the Delaware River just under the water line with some long logs with spikes on the top just below the water line. They sunk them across the Delaware River all the way across to New Jersey, and they put some change between them to slow up the British warships. So Howe took Philadelphia. He needed resupplies and fresh troops, and so there was 250 British ships sailed up the Delaware, and they got stopped right in front of Fort Mifflin. And there was Fort Mercer across the river, and they had a 5-week siege. These guys, eventually, it was up to 400 men came to the fort, and they held off the British for 5 weeks. And it was from September through November, early November, I think 14th, 15th, when the fort it fell. These men held off. Out of 400, 250 men were killed at the fort.
Wow, just during that siege.
Just during that siege. And what happened then was, come November, the men never surrendered the fort. They just it got to the point where they had nothing. There was no, they had no cannonballs left, nothing to shoot back. So they decided to abandon the fort. They never surrendered the fort because they left the Fort Mifflin flag flying, and they escaped by going across the Delaware to New Jersey at Fort Mercer. And at the height at the battle, the British were bombarding the fort with 1,000 to 1,100 cannonballs an hour. They just they just devastated the place. So this gave time for Washington to settle in the Valley Forge. So everybody knows about the Winter of Valley Forge and how Washington got his troops trained and became a fighting force. So that's how Fort Mifflin got the nickname "the Fort that Saved America." These 400 patriots held off the British long enough so that Washington could establish winter campment at Valley Forge.
So 250 men died. Now, I guess I'm not very familiar with forts, but typically was it just some men that lived there, or were there families there also?
At this point, it was just the men that were there. When it became afterwards, yes, you had women and children living there. When it was rebuilt under John Adams in the 1790s, late 1790s, and that was during the yellow fever epidemic of Philadelphia. So you had all these deaths during when they were rebuilding it. So
how many deaths do you think are associated with Fort Mifflin overall over all those hundreds of years?
There's I wouldn't say thousands, but it's in the high hundreds. You had 250 at the at Revolution. You had the yellow fever deaths. During the Civil War was a military prison. So there was conditions were horrific. So there was a lot of deaths there. There were hangings and death by firing squad for deserters and murderers. We're right on the Delaware River, so we get drowning victims. So it's just, it's layers. Like I always tell people, it's layers of history, layers of deaths, and layers of spirits there. It's just a unique spot.
Is there a cemetery on the property?
There was. There's the old hospital building, and there was a cemetery behind the hospital building, but that is now part of the Army Corps of Engineers. So supposedly all the bodies were moved from the cemetery back there. But back then when they would move bodies, you could only you didn't have to take the whole body, just bones of it, So we're sure there's bones there and there, and plus during the siege, guys were getting the 1,000 cannonballs coming, and guys were just getting vaporized and so
it's like a living cemetery, like basically like everywhere you go could possibly be
everywhere you go, because because the fort, when it was rebuilt, it was laid out like, there's part of the original fort from 1777, but it was laid out how it was built back in the 1777 when Adams rebuilt it in 1798. So the grounds are all, intact from the Revolutionary Battle. So it's one of the
Right.
few sites where it's an intact Revolutionary Battle site.
Okay, so the references I always see is a casemate, and I don't even know what a casemate is. What is a casemate?
Well, the casemates we have casemates 1 through 5. When this is rebuilt under Adams, the casemates would have been the bomb shelters
Oh,
for the troops. Casemate 1 would have been, it's a big casemate that would have been for the regular soldiers. Then there's casemates 2, 3, and 4. That would have been for storage. They're smaller. And then casemate 5 would have been for the officers. But during the Civil War, they all became prison cells. So the casemate 1 became the Confederate prison cell, most of them from the Battle of Gettysburg. Casemates 2, 3, and 4 became the political prisoners or the civilian prison cells, and casemate 5 was the Union prisoners cell. And then plus we have a casemate 11, which was just unearthed 16 years ago. After about late 1800s, it was when they upgraded some of the fort, they buried it, and it was just re-excavated 16 years ago. And that's an original part of the fort. That would have been the original powder magazine, but during the Civil War, that became solitary confinement. So yeah, that was casemate 11. And when that was unearthed, it was like an Egyptian tomb. It was airtight, and
did you notice more activity after you guys uncovered that?
yeah. If you go back to Ghost Hunters, that's the first time they came there. They were the first people to go into there, and
Okay.
we know the 2 prisoners that were there because they wrote their names on the wall.
Is that Captain Nathan Stoddard and Judge Jacob William, or is this these were
William Howe. This is William Howe and
William Howe and Bernard
Yeah,
Devlin?
yes, they're the ones in casemate 11.
And Private William Howe, was he a Union soldier or
Yes, he
a?
was a Union soldier. Yes, he was a Union soldier, and he was actually a Union a hero. I mean, he during the Battle of Fredericksburg, he picked the American flag up that had been dropped and carried it through the battle, but then became ill and was supposed to report to a field hospital, but decided he was going to walk all the way to his house up in Pennsylvania from Virginia. And eventually they sent troops up to get him for desertion, and a shot rang out, and one of the marshals that was sent was killed and shot and killed, and that's when he was brought to the fort and held at the fort. And then he got accused of trying to dig out and escape from casemate 5, and that's when he got thrown in the casemate 11 solitaire. Then he got hauled to Eastern State, tried and convicted of murder and desertion, and then they brought him back to the fort and they hung him, and it was a public hanging. They sold tickets for people to watch him being hung.
So at one point he was considered a hero, and then because of his desertion, he became like public enemy number 1.
Correct. Lincoln wanted to make an example out of him, and it was the only public execution at the fort, but it was only one of the few desertion hangings during the Civil War too. I mean, it was just.
How old was he?
He wasn't old at all. He was only in his 20s. I mean, he had a wife, and they had the wife and all come. They had all his other troops from his unit come, and it was standing room only. Watch to be hanged.
To watch him be hung.
So yeah, to watch him be hung, and he wrote multiple letters to President Lincoln asking for his pardon. And I mean, really, no one knows if he's the one that did the shooting. I mean, there was a banging at the door at his door in the middle of the night. A shot rang out, and he was the one accused. I mean, it could have been his wife. Who knows? And so yeah, he was made just to be made an example of.
And he's one of the ones that everyone always refers to as hunting Fort Mifflin.
Yes, he's there. Some people think there's a spirit we have that's a faceless spirit. Some people think it's William Howe because being hung, they put a sack over your head.
Oh, right.
But there were other hangings at the fort, so I don't think he's the faceless man. If you go with the captain, with the captain you talk about,
Sergeant Bernard Devlin.
Yeah, I mean, you got during the siege when the cannons were coming in, it's documented. Guys were getting vaporized. Guys were getting their heads blown off. I really think the headless spirit is one of the revolutionary soldiers that was took a cannonball to the head there.
Yeah, because a lot of people refer to the faceless one as being, but Bernard Devlin, except just because he did die because his head was blown off, right?
Devlin, we don't know if he got his head blown off or not. No,
Oh,
he was a Union. He was put in with William Howe. Him and William Howe were prisoners in casemate 11 during the Civil War time.
and then okay, so a lot of the shows reference the powder magazine, the back wall in the powder magazine.
Yeah, the powder magazine it was for storing gunpowder. Yeah, that's very very active. I mean, any medium that goes in there is drawn to the back wall. And so they pick up energy from that back wall. Either they think there's bodies back there, or there's like a portal there. It's very a lot of energy, and I've seen very light anomalies in there. To get in there, since it was stored gunpowder, to get in there, when you go into the entrance, you go so far and it's a 90-degree stop, and you got to make a 90-degree left, hit the back wall, stop, make another 90-degree to get in. And that was designed so that if there was an explosion, the blast didn't blow straight back out. It had to work
Smart.
its way down the hallway through blast doors before it could get out. So there's no opening, no light in there at all, because again, it would have been for the gunpowder. So there's no way light can get into this place. And when you're out there at night and the lights are turned off, you cannot see the hand in front of your face. It's pitch
But
black. I
somehow
mean,
you're getting light anomalies in there.
getting these weird light anomalies. I've seen them on the back wall. The one time it was like looking at a universe. It was amazing. It was just lights going all over the back wall, and then I had them going over me on top on the wall, and it's just strange. So people think there's a portal there, but we don't know.
Do you, this might be a stupid question, but there's no chance of removing at least a couple bricks to see what's behind there?
Um, we would love to be able to, but since it's a National Historic site,
Can't
we
touch
can't
it.
do that. But if I always show people, if you go outside, you got the back wall, but after the back wall, it goes out about 6 feet, the back. So there is something behind that wall. So we'd love to get some ground penetrating radar to get down over there and check things out. So we would hope we're hoping to get some grants so we can get some investigations out there to check on that. But I'm sure they would find something back there. People have picked up when the fort was being rebuilt. It was rebuilt with the French to help. It was a French engineer and French officers, and they would have their French slaves. So some people think maybe it was one of the French, subordinates or slaves that were put behind that wall. So we don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
That
it's
sounds interesting though.
yeah,
I would bug me to not be able to get back there.
yeah. I would love to get back there. It's just one of those, hopefully eventually we can do that. It was like casemate 11. We knew it was there. We just didn't know where the entrance was until we had a groundskeeper and he was doing yard work and his foot trailed, through a hole. It opened up, and then it was excavated. It was like, wow, here it is. Here's the entrance to casemate 11 that's been hidden for over 150 years. So
That's so crazy.
yeah, so we keep finding some old surveys, and so there's things that we continually find that we hadn't known before. So it always just a lot. Like I say, it's been longest active military fort, Revolutionary War through the Korean War before it was deactivated in 1954. So there's a lot there. So you
Let's
know.
talk about the hospital. The hospital. I understand the hospital is not oftentimes investigated, or is it?
Correct. It's our administration building where for us for our
People that work
executive
there.
director. Yeah, people working there and everything. So it was a hospital, and then they first floor was became the mess hall. So I always tell people, if maybe those guys that were eating dinner didn't know where that dinner came from. It might have come from upstairs.
Oh, no.
So well, you never know. But
Well,
yeah, it's very active. If we spend a night there, we have groups there, or we enactors.
so, what is your scariest experience you've had at Fort Mifflin?
My scariest experience, going back to the powder magazine, for years I just wasn't able to go in there by myself at night. I just uh, didn't have
Where?
a good, yeah, I just had a good feeling of going into the powder magazine
Oh,
by
okay.
myself. Um, so one time I forced myself to go in there because every time I tried to go in, it was like something was blocking me, preventing me to go in. One night went in there and I sat, and I was just sitting there in complete black. Again, you can't see the hand in front of your face.
Right.
Something was coming towards me, and it was banging like metal against the wall, and I could hear it, and it came getting closer and closer to me, and it stopped, and I had my recorder going, and eventually I decided, all right, I got to get out of here. And then when I played my recorder back, it was like somebody was screaming right next to me to get out, get out. And that's
You
all
actually heard that.
I got that on the recorder. Yeah, the banging on the metal I heard coming towards me, but yeah, once I played back my recorder, it was like somebody screaming, "Get out!" I mean, it was. I played it to people and said, "Okay, where's the EVP? You didn't hear that? Get out!" Oh, we thought that was somebody yelling at you. Yeah, they were,
Oh,
but they
wow.
were. No one was there. Um, so that was scary, but the weirdest thing was in this one area of the fort is called a sally port. There's two sally ports, and there's the main gate. The sally ports are smaller areas with small gates. That's where the guards would be stationed. And there's bunks in there because they would have those guards sleeping on the bunks. And I was sitting on the bottom bunk and sitting there, and the shadow figures are going back and forth outside the room. And eventually asked them to come in, and one came in, and then something climbed up me to get to the top bunk. I feel the pressure on my legs and then my shoulders. It climbed over me, and then eventually climbed back down over me to leave. So that was one of the weirdest experiences I had.
Do you think that was a kid or do you think that was an adult?
I think it might have been a child because the shadow figures, there's a tall one and a shorter one, but we do have children spirits there, and so it might have been a child. We've had, I mean, there's two that I think are brother and sister. They're little blondes that run around.
Wait. How do you know they're blondes?
I've seen them.
So let's define what you are. Are you a psychic medium? Are you
I can pick some
sensitive?
things up. I mean, I. I mean, doing stuff over the years, I've developed it. But I had a near-death experiences back. I had with my stomach tumors and everything when I was in ICU. I had a near death. My grandfather, he grabbed my hand and told me it wasn't my time. And I've had lots of degenerative disc disease, and I've had all kinds of disc blowouts. So I have multiple rods and screws and plates through my body, and so I had cervical fusion and 3 lumbar fusions, and each of those fusions, they use crushed cadaver bone. They put it in
Oh,
cage,
wow.
and to put into the cages to replace the disc. They removed the disc, and so then they put the crushed cadaver bone between the vertebrae so it fuses. So I've had four fusion surgeries. So there's at least 4 different cadaver DNA in me also. So
So before prior to these near death experiences, did you ever have? Were you just interested in ghosts, or did this
Yeah,
all come
just that. Yeah,
about
that's interested in ghosts and everything, and always were interested. But then, things started, getting a little bit more interesting.
So ever since your experiences, so like
Yeah,
now, so you're what is it called when you can see things? There's audible, and then there's feelings, and then there's people who actually physically see things.
yeah. I could see, and then I get the images in my head, and then I can get the words in my head, and so yeah.
How
So
did you end up at Fort Mifflin?
my son, when he was old enough, I love the history, and again around here you got the Battle of Brandywine, Germantown, Paola, and any reenactments. We used to go all the time to reenact this, and then Fort Mifflin always would have, their siege weekend. They'd do Civil War, World War One, Two. They do all these reenactings, and so we would go there all the time. And then when he got to be a scout, they did a sleepover at the fort, and this was before ghost hunters even got there, and the place was nuts. It was like uh, things were happening unbelievable. So it was like, wow. So then I started volunteering at the fort, and then I got more involved with the paranormal. Was in some groups and things, and eventually I got asked if just want to be here at the fort, be the paranormal host here at the fort, and I said, of course I do. So I've been
No, no, no. It's the Paranormal Ambassador.
yeah, the paranormal ambassador to the fort. Yeah, it's
We're
been.
going to promote that terminology. Let's keep that going.
Yeah,
We need
I'm
to.
gonna I gotta get a shirt made like that.
Yeah, we need to. Everybody needs to have their own paranormal ambassador.
That's good. Does work.
It's
So
a
yeah,
yeah. It's a much better title.
so yeah. I mean, instead of going, like I say, I've investigated all over the place, and it's just nice to call a place your home and stay at the one place because the they get to know you. The spirits get to know you. All of our tour guides and everything that's been there for a while, everybody's had experiences, and they know our names. They call us by our names. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, it's very unique, and there's nothing negative, demonic there. I mean, you can, of course, you have some pissed off, upset spirits that but nothing that's going to cause any kind of harm. I mean, there is physical contact. Especially with the kids, they like females or grab their females' hands. Or feel woman will feel a little hand grab in their hand if they're hanging there, and you get mommy, mommy a lot,
Oh.
and then in one area of the fort, casemate 5, there's a particular spirit that is obsessed with blonde females. He likes to stroke their hair, touch them, shoulders, nothing inappropriate, but just their arms, their shoulders, and they don't feel very comfortable and they have to leave. But
But this is okay. That's the one that I talked about earlier. I was confusing where William Howe and Bernard Devlin are, but Casemate 5 is where Captain Nathan Stoddard and Judge Jacob Wilhelm
Judge
is.
Jacob, yeah, Judge was a political prisoner there at the fort. He
And
was.
Nathan was the one that was killed with a cannonball. He
Yeah,
was
he's one.
beheaded
He's
by
one.
a.
He's one of the guys that definitely. He's one of the documented cannonball guys. Yeah, there's other guys too. When the flag, like I say, back in 1777, they had the Fort Mifflin, the flag. It was a Pennsylvania Navy flag. It's red, white, and blue stripes all the way down. It was Pennsylvania Navy flag, and the seamstress that made every single Pennsylvania Navy flag was Betsy Ross. So the flag that flew over Fort Mifflin in 1777 was actually made by Betsy Ross. So
Oh.
yeah, the history there is so unique, and so they were going to lower the flag to put up a signal flag to the Pennsylvania Navy, which was out there harassing the British warships. But as they were lowering it, the men thought they were lowering it to surrender, so they yelled to put the flag back up full mast. They didn't want it coming down. So the soldier then hoisted the flag back Well, as it was coming down, the British ceased fire. They stopped firing because they thought they were surrendering. So they brought it down. The British stopped firing, and the troops got upset. So he putting the flag back up, and then the British, once it got back up, they did their onslaught again with the cannonballs, and the person that raised the flag back up, got off the flag, got down, and started walking, and he got taken out by a cannonball. So there's a Plum Martin. He was a Revolutionary soldier, Soldier's Diary, I think the book is, and he was like the Forrest Gump of the Revolutionary War. He was in every major battle in the Revolutionary War, and he was at Fort Mifflin during the siege. So he write that. I mean, he wrote about how the assault, and he wrote about that soldier getting blown off from the flagpole there.
So all this stuff is documentations that they found at the fort.
Yeah, it's documentations. There's during the Civil War, we know the political prisoners. There's a book called The American Bastille. It was by a John A. Marshall. It was written after the Civil War. It was a history of the illegal arrests and imprisonments of American citizens in the northern and border states on account of their political opinions during the late Civil War. So it was, people don't know about it, but, if you opposed Lincoln at that time, they were rounding people up and throwing them in jail. Jacob Wilcombe was an active sitting judge in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania, and was accused of being a anti-Lincoln activist, and he got thrown in prison. So yeah, there was 43 from upstate Pennsylvania called the Fishing Creek Conspiracy. I saw
that, the Fishing Creek Resurrection.
Yep, Fishing Creek. There's 43 of them sent down to the fort, and they were just farmers, blacksmiths, irregular people that they basically they opposed the war. They refused to report for the draft. Lincoln sent troops up. One of the patrols got ambushed. You had a Union officer killed, so he sent more troops up, and they rounded up hundreds of people, and they ended up sending 43 of them to the fort to be imprisoned. And then there was 40 from Clearfield County, Pennsylvania, and that was with Judge Jacob Wilhelm. And then plus, if you know about the Molly Maguires, the Irish miners' uprising too, at the same time, there were 60 of them thrown in the fort also at that same time. So, you had a lot of activity there in the Civil War there at the fort, and again the conditions were horrific. So people were dying, the prisoners dying, and not only the prisoners, but the disease was spreading throughout the garrison. So you had women and children and soldiers just all dying of disease.
I always ask this question. Do you think Fort Mifflin has more intelligent hauntings or more of the imprints on history hauntings?
Well, intelligent or residual. So we have both, but we have a lot of good intelligent hauntings. I mean, full bodies that interact, you can see. And we have a tour guide, Revolutionary War tour guide that shows up and gives tours. And when there's no tour guide there, yeah, he's well documented, and he gives explicit details about the bombardment of 1777. And people come out, rave about this tour guide. It's like, well, there's no tour guide working today.
So there's like a bunch of people that go on a tour with a ghost tour guide.
Yep.
When was the last time that happened? Tell me when that happened.
Probably about, I'd say the last one I know of that people have said was Wayne was out there. So it was probably 7 years ago that I know of the last one that actually happened.
Being led on a ghost tour from a ghost.
Yep. And another time, this came, and it's usually over by the Powder Magazine. Always over by the Powder Magazine. That's where he.
See, and people think that is a portal.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk some dirt. You've had every TV show from Ghost Hunters to Portals to Hell. Destination Fear.
They haven't been there yet.
Wait, I thought Destination Fear has been there.
No, they haven't. I want to get them there because everybody else leaves and doesn't spend the whole night there. So now, Ghost Hunters was there twice. Ghost Hunters Academy then was there, and Portals to Hell, and some other, like the Ghost Finders that's on Paraflix or whatever. So but no, Destination Fear unfortunately hasn't been there yet, and I'm trying to get them to go there because I would love them to spread out and. I got places where I want them to sleep.
Okay, you have to promise me if you have Destination Fear come, you invite me too.
I will definitely do that.
I'll take a place and I'll spend the night somewhere by myself.
All right, that works. There's plenty of
But
places to stay.
it's not going to be. It's not going to be the Powder Magazine. That's just a no for me. That's a no for me. I'm not doing the Powder Magazine. But I would do the hospital, and I would do the casemate where Judge Wilhelm is. I want to hear him call me names.
Yeah, he likes the bitch and whore names for the females.
Yeah, and it was so sweet. The one of the TV show I was watching, it was Mary, the tour guide. Is she still there?
Yes.
Okay, she was so sweet. It's like she didn't want to say those words.
Yep.
Like she was trying really hard not to say them, but then she ultimately said them. I was like, oh my god, she's so cute. I want to hang out with her.
Yeah, he drops the F-bomb all the time,
Wow.
Oh yeah, that's how I get greeted. F you, Greg, or Greg F you. And when I tell people, if they hear the F word, it's the judge, and they pick it up all the time on their recorders or even their ghost box and stuff. We had the last open investigation. I guess when was that? June. August, I guess. Yeah, it was August. We had a group in the Casemate 5, and they had their ghost box going, and it was like, all right, do you want us to leave? Let us know if you want us to leave, and we'll leave. And the response came through, get the F out.
Wow, he's serious.
And it was like, all right, guys, I think you know what he wants you to do. So everybody were getting out. It was just incredible. Get that.
Who was your favorite? What was your favorite TV show that came?
I'll say Portals to Hell. That was all good because Katrina's a sweetheart. Katrina's local. She's not too far from us in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. So
she's been there a lot.
She's been there a lot. She's there a lot. She came down. We did a YouTube. She's got her YouTube show now with Haunted. I forget what it is, but she came down to film at the fort. But she's there a lot. I met her 11 years ago at the fort, and
oh wow.
So she's a sweetheart, and Jack was great. It was cool to talk to Jack about his dad. Ozzy. So.
And he didn't. They didn't determine that. Actually, I don't even remember if they even talked about it being a portal, but they at the end of it determined that there was nothing negative there. That it wasn't a portal to hell. It may be a portal, but it's not a portal to hell. That it's not a negative place. That it's active, but it doesn't feel negative or
doesn't
heavy.
Feel negative. No, it doesn't feel. But Chris Fleming, who was the medium, he was picking up at the portal, and he was about there could be something bad coming and going, or bad coming and going. We've had other medium come in and say that there is a portal. We've had many people say there's a portal there, and saying that the soldiers that are there, the spirits that are still at the fort, and a lot of the soldiers, they're there to defend, to keep anything bad coming through that portal.
Oh, they're still guarding it.
Yes.
This is the way that we say it from now on. That you still have soldiers guarding the fort, whether it's from living or unliving.
Yeah, because I have a theory too about there was a group of deserters during the siege, and they then were caught after Washington came back into Philadelphia. For whatever reason, these guys stayed in Philadelphia, so they were caught and they were tried and convicted of desertion, and then they were was a mass hanging, public hanging in Market Street, Philadelphia. So I think some of these revolutionary soldiers that are still there, their sentence for being a deserter, their sentence is to guard the fort, stay at the fort for eternity.
Wow.
So That's
I don't know
just
if that makes me sad or like relieved for the fort. You know what I mean? Like that's just
right.
eternity. That's
Eternity.
eternity.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you
So
so much. You're awesome. What is the fort for my listeners that are anywhere near Philadelphia? You guys have a bunch of stuff coming up for October.
yes, we do. If you go to our website, fortmifflin.us, you would go to the events section. We have October. We have, of course, tomorrow night is our open investigation night, but that's been sold out. And then every weekend, Friday and Saturday afterwards, we have candlelight ghost tours where
Nice.
we have the fort just lit up with candles and some lanterns, and we take you walk around the fort with a lantern, and we talk about the ghost stories there, and the tour guides, they will talk about their own personal experiences there they've encountered. So it's a real, we don't have anybody jumping down at you or anything, but it's always a good time. People do see a lot, and a lot happens during these times. And then we have at the Saturday before Halloween is our Sleep with the Ghost program, where you can come in and try and spend the night at the fort if you would like.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love that. So that's not sold out yet?
That's not filled out full yet. That hasn't sold
Okay.
out yet, but that's still available. It will sell out very quick. It will sell out soon. So that's something. Yeah, check out the Sleep with the Ghosts there at the fort.
And your candlelight ghost tours are only $20 per person?
$20 a person, and they run an hour. And we have a nice bonfire going, and we do have a bar there. We have a
Nice.
licensed company that comes in with their own little trailer, and so you can have a cold beer or whatever, and sit around the fire, and
See,
that's.
I should live in Pennsylvania. You guys have more fun than we do in California. California, we have all the mazes that people jump out at you. There's not like real crap going on.
Yeah, we do our good. I mean, Eastern State, they have their stuff that they scare you and
Eastern, well,
everything.
yeah, obviously Pennhurst, Eastern State,
Yep.
Pennsylvania is a place to be if you are. Well, I keep telling people all the time, I'm not a ghost hunter. I talk about ghosts. I don't necessarily go looking for ghosts. But if I were invited somewhere really cool, I would be there in a heartbeat. So, I would be shocked if you guys. I'm kind of shocked right now that there's any tickets left for any of the stuff you do because
Yeah.
that sounds amazing. Thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Well, thank you for having me. I
All
enjoy
right, for my
talking about the Ford, and it's a pleasure.
I love it. You do. You sound like that. It sounds like you're stuck at home.
It is. It is.
And it's fun to talk to people who are passionate about it and the history about it too. Because I always love the history. The history is what draws me in. A ghost story is literally icing on the cake for me. So I love talking to people who are like-minded, that that are truly into the history portion of it. And if there's a ghost story with it, it's just that much better.
Yep, definitely.
Thank you, and thanks for being patient with me this week.
You're welcome.
For more information on the history and hauntings at Fort Mifflin, please visit fortmifflin.us. Thank you for listening to this episode of Haunting History Podcast. We love hearing from you, so be sure to like, follow, and comment on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Haunting History Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to all your favorites.
Visit our website at hauntinghistorypodcast.com for more information on each episode, links to our Patreon page, and all of our social media platforms.
Until next time, I'm Kat.
I'm Haley.
Remember, the living are far scarier than any ghost.